Welcome to Tlingit, the ancestral homeland of my people, the Huna Tlingit. The centuries since my ancestors first settled here have brought great change to this majestic landscape, and the people who relied upon it for shelter and nourishment. Powerful forces have shaped us both. Something that did not and would not change is a spiritual connection my people have with this natural world, this waterway of life. It is a bond felt to this day among the Huna Tlingit, a people who walk in two very different worlds. Long before there were written records of Glacier Bay, there were stories, our stories, the stories of the Huna Tlingit. Early accounts tell of this land as it once was. Grasslands, forests, and rivers teeming with all that was needed to live and thrive. This was my ancestors' world, until someone angered the spirit of the glacier, causing it to advance, moving as fast as a dog could run, forever altering the landscape and obliterating the clan houses and homes of the Huna Tlingit. The clans separated in search of a place that could compare to the richness of the land from which they had been forced to flee. They reunited in present-day Huna, staying close to their ancestral home, confident it would be freed from the ice that imprisoned it so that one day they could return. As they waited, they sang to their spiritual home across the water. "We are patient, land of our grandfathers. We will wait. We are a patient people. You are worth it." They took solace in their memories, song, and dance, continuing their traditional lifestyle and practices. The Tlingit have a well-developed social structure that serves as the foundation of and supports the perpetuation of our culture. Our history has been passed down over centuries through oral tradition. It is also communicated in all that our ancestors created: clothing, clan houses, tools. Before modern structures, there were clan houses. A traditional clan house was differentiated by specific totems or crests, identifying its owners. Totems and house posts further told the story of its residents, commemorating events and memorializing loved ones. Inside a clan house, traditional work could be found on the walls: ornately carved posts, screens, boxes. These designs are the history books of our people. A great deal was lost, of course, in the glacier's advance. More would be jeopardized by a more devastating force: Western culture. Years went by, and the ice began to retreat. As a Huna people gazed across the water at the mountains of their home, the stories say, their hearts changed cadence, quickening to match the beat of the drum to the deep and resonating songs of their ancestors. They knew they could wait no longer, and they began their trip home. As they paddled their canoes, they sang the old songs and retold the tales of a land of dense forests and winding rivers surrounded by grasslands. But as they rounded the point at the entrance of what is now called Glacier Bay, the singing stopped. The storytelling ended. Their eyes saw only desolation. The land was gone. The rich forests, the teeming rivers, the places they remembered and carried with them in story and song were no more. In their place was water that stretched for miles to the glacier in the far, far distance. They expected land. Instead, there was Tlingit, the bay in place of the glacier. Although Tlingit was now a barren place, the Huna people had not lost everything. This landscape was perfectly suited for a life of a different kind. As this life started to return, so did the Huna Tlingit. They did not come to Tlingit to live, but to hunt and gather in their spiritual home. They set up seasonal camps during spring and summer. In preparation for winter, they hunted along the ice floes and in the forests. They fished teeming seas. They picked berries along the newly carved hillsides and beaches. They gathered shellfish in ebbing tides. And for a few months each year, their spirits would swell as they could say, "I am home." One of the main resources that brought the Huna people back to Sit-Iti-Qi was the harbor seal. These animals had become more abundant as the ice retreated. The men would come to hunt along the faces of the glaciers, where the seals congregated, covering the dark wood of their canoes and wearing white pelts to camouflage with the ice. Along the rugged rock ledges, they hunted mountain goats, which grazed in abundance. The wool was used to make blankets and tunics, the meat dried and put up for winter. Horns were used as spear tips, and the hooves as rattles to be hung from regalia. Nothing was wasted. To do so would offend the spirits that permeated the Tlingit world. When the ice retreated even further up the bay, it left behind what are now called the Marble Islands, a rookery site for seabirds. In late spring, young men climbed the cliff faces to gather gull eggs, leaving behind more than they took, ensuring this bounty year after year. Although the land had lost its ability to provide them with permanent shelter, it had not lost its ability to protect and care for its people. They had been patient, and the land was worth it. As the years went by, another encroachment began in the form of settlers, lured by the promise of riches and an abundance of resources. With them came new diseases, which destroyed entire villages. With them too came a desire to possess the land upon which the indigenous people lived and depended. The U.S. government did not consider reservations manageable for the territory's native population, dispersed among so many remote villages in this vast state. Instead, officials chose what they called assimilation. Within a short time, the Tlingit had been driven into a few larger communities. The land grab began, and the government divided up traditional homelands. Sit-Iti-Qi was no exception. By the turn of the century, the scientific community of the United States realized the significance of Glacier Bay. The growing interest in its preservation eventually led to the complete expulsion of the Huna Tlingit from their ancestral homeland, and a revocation of traditional hunting and gathering rights. The finality of this reality began to set in with the people. They would never be allowed to return to their true home. Before long, the Tlingit language was outlawed. It was made illegal to sing and dance or perform traditional ceremonies. Children were taken from their home and sent to faraway boarding schools. Forbidden to use their Tlingit names, they returned as Frank or John. The beautiful clan houses of the past and the totem poles disappeared, outlawed in the mistaken belief that they were objects of pagan worship. Soon, all that was left were memories to remind the people of what once was. The Tlingit people did not give up, however. Prohibited from constructing the clan houses of the past, they made modern ones. Told they couldn't sing and dance, they went to places where only the beaches and the forests could hear and see. These pressures took their toll. The language began to die. Our people would not quit, however. Today, there are approximately 900 residents in the modern village of Huna. And although much has changed, much remains. Dance and song survived and are considered sacred traditions that continue today. The language and traditions are being passed down again, and children are once again proud to be Tlingit. We make sure the beat of our drums is loud enough to shake the mountains. For the Tlingit people have a saying, only when the last drum stops beating on this land will the people cease to exist. While our access remains limited in Glacier Bay, Sit-Iti-Qi remains open for us to visit, and we do. We come to look for answers. We come to pay our respects to the land of our ancestors. And although we can no longer nourish our bodies here, we nourish our souls. Here among the spirits of our forefathers, here in the traditional homeland of our people, our land, Ha-a-ni. When we are invited to help others see this magnificent place through our eyes, the eyes of its indigenous people, you honor the land, and you honor us. So join us as our cultural interpreters show you Glacier Bay. Make our stories yours. We are the Huna Tlingit. We are Alaska natives. We are this land, and we welcome you to Glacier Bay. Glaciers.